it appeared Clint Kubiak's first thing to do was to find Maxx Crosby and have a cup of coffee with him. Any idea what? Let's start here. What is going on? Is there any smoke here? Does Maxx Crosby have an issue, a beef that can't be bridged at all? Or is he just, because we heard him on Jim Gray and Tom's pod basically saying he just wants to be left the F alone and he's all about football. Tom, what's going on?
Here's what I would say. Maxx Crosby, and Clint alluded to this, he is in the building every day. He is doing his rehab. He's doing his workouts. He continues to go about his football-related business the way that he always has. My understanding is that conversation with Clint Kubiak was positive. Max, and I think that he mentioned it on that podcast, is impressed by some of the things that he knows about Clint Kubiak. He enjoyed that conversation. But there are a lot of other fences that would need to be mended for Maxx Crosby to stay in Las Vegas. He's been through, 6 or 7 head coaches in his time there. He's been to the playoffs once. He's played through a ton of injuries. When you think back through all the players that have come and gone from that place over the time, the Maxx Crosby has been there, he's like the lone wolf still standing. And so there's really two sides of this, Rich. It's not solely, Maxx Crosby and what he wants to do. Again, I would anticipate the combine is coming up in a couple of weeks. I would anticipate that there are more conversations there between Crosby's representatives and Raiders brass. Certainly Max, has some decisions to make after the way that things ended last year, shut down at a time that he did not want to be shut down. He's got to decide whether or not he can be all in once again after taking so many leaps through the years with different coaches and different regimes and then seeing the plug pulled within a year or two. He does have a great relationship and an affinity for Mark Davis. And so, there's some part of him that's always wanted to be, and he said that before, wants to be a Raider. On the flip side of it, too, you have a Raiders team that has to decide, does it even make sense for us to hang on to Maxx Crosby, particularly if at some point he very clearly and decisively says, I don't want to be here. If the Raiders, as Clint Kubiak evaluates this roster, comes to the conclusion that, hey, in the next year or two, we can do the quick flip. We can get this thing on track. We can be competing to go to the playoffs. You might say, we want Max here. We need him. He's 27, about to turn 28 years old. He's still in his prime. We think we can flip this fast enough that he can continue to be the cultural center of everything we're doing, particularly on defense. We're going to grow, and he's going to be a part of the turnaround. If Clint and his staff, along with John Spytek in the front office, look at this roster the way a lot of other people do around the NFL and say, this is a complete ground-up rebuild, other than, Bowers, Genty, Colton Miller, it's a pretty short list of like your core players. This is going to be, 3 years or more. The best way to hasten that rebuild is to trade Maxx Crosby, who at this point can still command, if not 2 first-round picks, certainly a first-round pick and more. Mm-hmm. There are many teams that would be salivating over getting Maxx Crosby. You could have a bidding war that plays out up until the start of free agency on March 11th, max out his value, no pun intended, and move on. So you have moving parts on both sides of this thing. It is not an impossibility, Rich, that Maxx Crosby is back with the Raiders. It is certainly a possibility that he is not, but there are multiple voices here, including Max and Clint Kubiak, all the way up to Mark Davis, who are going to be a part of this decision. Absolutely, this is going to be one to follow in the weeks to come.
Listen, I know the way you go about your business, and the fact that you didn't hit this directly on the head means, it's something that you don't want to talk about, whatever you do know. And I know you're already cocking your head, like, where are you going with this? But
I said a lot there, so I'm wondering which one
Tom,
you're going to poke out.
Like, why? Like, what's the issue? Like, what's the problem? The way these last year ended, he wanted to finish on the field, or is it really, he's pissed that they sent him home, and he wanted to finish the season because he's that sort of a lion-hearted type of guy, or he's sick and tired of the losing and the changing and all that stuff.
All the above. It is all the above. They have been bad for most of his time there. They have had endless change, scheme changes, coaching changes, front office changes. And he was upset. Absolutely. He was upset when they shut him down. I mean, you got to remember, Max was playing through that injury like half the season. He's played through a ton of different stuff. And then when you're the Raiders, you're Tom Brady, you're John Spytek, whoever, coming to him and saying, we think it's in your best interest to shut it down now, that's going to strike a competitor a certain type of way.
Right.
You know, they could have shut him down in November. They shut him down with 2 games to go. And everybody can read into that what they will about a team that may have wanted to preserve the number 1 pick and ultimately did preserve the number 1 pick that they can now use to go and in all likelihood get Fernando Mendoza, the Indiana quarterback. That's all part of the broader tapestry of this thing. But absolutely, he was mad about that. But that was not the only issue. It's not as if everything was great and then he was told, hey, we're shutting you down for 2 games, and he lost his mind. He was very upset about it, but it was everything that led up to that. It was the perpetual losing. Think about the number of coaches, Rich, that they've had there, from Gruden to Bisaccia to Josh McDaniels to Antonio Pierce to Pete Carroll to now Clint Kubiak. You've had several different front office changes, all the players that Max was there with. I talked with Gruden about this recently. He was going down the list of players that they had in his last year. Like, you had like a dozen legit players on that team, and every one of them is gone. You can imagine it's the Will Smith Fresh Prince gif of him looking around the empty room. Max, at some point, it's like, not only do I not recognize the guys around me, I don't recognize the guys that came before the guys around me. That's how many times this thing has turned over. He knows he's got a limited amount of time with this thing. He wants to be great. He wants to be a Hall of Famer. He's headed that direction, but he also wants to win. The fact that he got pulled for the last 2 games last year, it was the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. It put it in a dark spot. I can't sit here and tell you that it's irreparable, but there is a lot to repair.
Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.